Well, hi there, guys and gals, Gamecats and Game Kittens, and everybody else adjacent to any of those descriptions. Welcome back to the channel. Craig the Hippy Pickle here, as always, and welcome to what is for me, a special episode because we have hit 300 subscribers. Yes, I really can't believe, the support I've been getting, and for some people, it's not a big number. For me, every subscriber's just really appreciated. And it was only just over 4 months ago I hit 200 subscribers. So the growth of the channel's going really well, and I can't thank everybody enough for supporting me in what I do. And I just love doing what I do. I love playing video games. I love talking about video games. It's my greatest passion. Other than my wife, of course, and she'll slap me if I don't say that. It's legal reasons, everything. But yeah, and I thought something a little bit different today, and I kind of discussed some of this on the 200 subscriber video and talked about retro and some of the gaming. I just thought I'd do a little bit of history of my gaming through the years. So going back from as far as I can remember, um, we had growing up in the 80s, we had the old Pong machines. It was basically the paddle, the twisters, and it was the bat and ball Pong games. And we had a few of those. Even had a light gun one. I think I've still got that in the shed somewhere. So yeah, they were kind of the standard. But then I'm just trying to think of what my first real, other than that, my first real gaming experience was. But I just remember getting the Sinclair Spectrum 16K rubber keyboard and playing on there. And the game what always comes to mind is Magic Meanies. I'll have to see if I can get some footage and put it up as well. But Magic Meanies, and then throughout the spectrum, you had the Horace goes skiing and Horace does loads of different things, which was just like a two-legged kind of sprite thing, really kind of strange. But just remember those games. And then I know my brother, one of my brothers had the 48K Spectrum, the hard keyboard one. That was posh. That and that did things a little bit better. And then I got, when a little bit older, into the later 80s, I got the 128K Spectrum with the built-in tape deck, the plus two, the built-in tape deck. And that's really where like my foundation of gaming came from, is that the home computer, like 128K, just like, nowadays that's that's like a pixel on most modern games. It's crazy. But throughout that generation, I really kind of found my love for adventure games and stories. Liked a lot of text adventures. Used to get the magazines, and the old text adventures, and you had the Hobbit. But I always remember in the magazines there was a series of games called The Long Road Home, and it was those old text adventures. You're in a room with a door to the east and a table to the north, and you had to type investigate table and things. I used to write those when I was in school. I used to write those games. Really enjoyed doing that in BASIC. It's something I wish I'd kind of. It's one of my big regrets. I never pursued my passion. I had a difficult school life. Didn't get the grades I should have got because I missed a lot of school because of the difficulties I were having. But anyway, just I wish I'd kind of pursued and gone into the industry, because there was a lot of people doing bedroom games. There were kids my age in the 80s making games in the bedrooms, and now these people are part of, multi-million dollar industry, and games companies. But I just kind of fell into when I got a bit older, just had to get a job, had to start working, and then fell into family lives and relationships over the years. And I just kind of let my passion, die a little bit that way, because it's something, even at my age now, as grand old age of 46, it's, it's something I still kind of want to do, but I kind of think I've missed the boat on making games. But I don't know if I could do like PR, marketing, or, I'm good at content creation. I believe I'm good at content creation. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy making videos. I enjoy trying to promote the little games. Anyway, getting off tangent, as I usually do. As if you watch my videos, you know I do that a lot. But yeah, the 128K Spectrum, and the big games for me, what stand out was Codemasters is a big publisher back in those days. Well, it's the big publisher now, of course, but for me, everything what had Codemasters on there just signified quality for me. And the Dizzy games. So the original Dizzy game, was kind of not the thing. But what got me into that series was the second game, Treasure Island Dizzy, and it was so difficult, that game. You only had one life, and that was basically a computing problem. When they tried to put more lives in it, it kept crashing, so they just did it with one life. But that game just I loved it. And then as the series went on, the York folk, and shout out to the Oliver twins. I just love their storytelling and just the lore they created with the York folk, and you had Magic Island Dizzy, Spellbound Dizzy, and then you had the spin-offs and things like that. And there was also things like Seymour Goes to Hollywood, very similar type of games. But yeah, the Spectrum was just great. And around that time, of course, you had because the Spectrum was a more affordable one here in the UK. I don't know if the Spectrum really got out much into. I think it might have done well in Europe. I'm not sure if it hit America as much because the Commodore was obviously a lot bigger back in those days. And the Commodore 64. See, I never actually owned a Commodore 64. My wife actually owns one. She's got it in her mum's attic. I'm desperately trying to get it off her, but anyway. But one of my cousins did have a Commodore 64, and that's when I kind of got into that. And just the loading of games, and the thing is, people are just these days don't understand. They're so spoilt with SSDs, and you complain if a load screen is like more than 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Oh, it's a travesty. It's kind of like we used to have to put a cassette in and go press play and go out and play outside for 30 minutes or so while the game loaded, and you come back in and it might have crashed. And then you turn your game off, then you had to load it yet again. This is what we used to do in the 80s. So kids are really spoilt these days with how video games are. But the loading screens on the Commodore 64 didn't have the ding, 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 and all the scratchy noises you used to get. It had music, and it was like, wow. And then you didn't have the color bleeds. So like Dizzy the Egg, for example, on the Spectrum. I'm not sure if it was better on the 128K, but it's like it was a white pixel character, and whenever he walked in front of another color object, he would turn that color because it just couldn't do it. And the Commodore 64 could differentiate and have colors on top of colors, and it was just such a leap that way. But some great, and for the Commodore 64, the game that always stands out for me, and I always remember, was Short Circuit, or Short Circuit 2 at the time, I'm not sure. But I always remembered that game for some reason. But yeah, moving on from those, the first foray into actual consoles, yet again, the same cousin what had the Commodore 64 also had the Atari, the original wooden layout one, the I can't remember, the 2600. Yeah, 2600. Is that right? Or was the one below that? Anyway, the old wooden walnut one. And playing that, and you had Pitfall, games like Vanguard. Those are the ones what kind of remember. And you had the old joysticks. And that was kind of like my first kind of go at consoles. So after the home computers, we moved on to consoles, and I've still got my Nintendo, my Super Nintendo here. I've got a GameCube here, which is I never owned at launch. I owned that afterwards. But the different part of today's video is lovely day, and we're going to go, and me and my wife are going to take a walk. We're going to take a long walk down to our local pub, the Butter and Oyster down at Pin Mill, have a drink, and along the way, we're going to have a bit of footage and a bit of music, and then I'm going to stop and do some talks over the next kind of steps of the generation. So I'll see you in a while. Enjoy the walk. Hope you enjoy the video, and if you are new, hit that like and subscribe. It means a lot, really does, and big love for everybody what has subscribed so far. Really does mean a lot. But yeah, a little bit different, bit of sunshine. Hope you enjoy it. so first stop, and just around here, somewhere in the brush, is our snake Charlie, our corn snake. When he died, we came and buried him out here. Just thought it'd be nice and peaceful. But yeah, so kind of moving on a little bit, and we're going into the Nintendo era really, and the NES, of course, was my first Nintendo, and quite a few games I really enjoyed on there. But the standout game on the NES for me was always Maniac Mansion. It's where I kind of fell in love with point and click games. Absolutely loved that game on there. Played a little bit of Zelda. Actually, the only game I still own is actually Zelda 2. It's the gold cartridge one. No idea if it still works, but I'm assuming it still works, and they're pretty sturdy, those things. But I really enjoyed the NES. It was my first console. And then from that era, of course, I had friends, and I had a friend. I never played a Master System back in those days, but I had a friend what got the Mega Drive when it first came out, and after coming from the NES, seeing the Mega Drive and Sonic, and just the absolute speed and color of everything, it was just kind of unbelievable. But I never owned a Mega Drive until later in life when I actually picked one up. Only a few years ago, to be honest. After that, of course, the Super Nintendo, and then the Super Nintendo was just the best era of gaming for me, through the 90s, and yeah, even into the 2000s, I was still playing the Super Nintendo. I had the Super Wildcard system, which was a backup system for the console, where you plugged into the cartridge slot, you put another cartridge in top, and then you could basically rip the cartridges straight to a floppy disk. And I had hundreds of games and for the Super Nintendo, and it's where I really fell in love with RPGs. And my favourite, well, I think if I were to do a top 10 and top of my head, anytime anybody says what's your favourite game of all time, I always go to Secret of Mana. It was just something about that game really resonated with me. I love the story. I know it's an action RPG, and funnily enough, even though I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan, I never played any of the Final Fantasies on the Super Nintendo. I just didn't know of the series at the time. So I kind of skipped that generation until we got to Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. And that was kind of really my first introduction to the series. And I kind of went back then and played a few of the older ones. But yeah, the Super Nintendo, just the pinnacle of console gaming for me. It's just so much great about that console. And games were so hard. And you look at games these days, and you know, with some exceptions like the Dark Souls series and things like that, a lot of those games were rock hard, especially the platformers. Now, if you see my review of System Critical 2, and I've talked to the dev as well, and he wanted to create that old school platform shooter. And I always think, when I think of those old school games, I think of like the Super Nintendo and the Star Wars series, Super Star Wars and Super Empire Strikes Back, and yada yada yada. And those, I never completed one of those games. I only ever got like several levels deep because they were so hard. They were so hard back in those days. But it was just a great console to game on. So yeah, I think that'll do for that section, because that's kind of covered the Nintendo bit. Because after that, obviously with the Nintendo originally, and then obviously Mega Drive. The Mega Drive went down because that was they're both 16 bits. The Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo, and then Sega went down the Mega CD route to get to which was a 32-bit, the upgrade. And of course, originally the original plan for Nintendo, they were partnering with Sony to develop the add-on for the Super Nintendo, which was going to be like the PlayStation. But they then changed their mind, and they went with another company to make the N64 instead. And that's kind of when I fell out of touch with Nintendo, because obviously Sony came along and they were doing all the right things for me as a gamer at the time, and everything I wanted to play was coming out in that format. But then obviously Sony put so much development into it, and that's when they came up, well, why don't we just do it ourselves and make our own console? And that's the birth of PlayStation. So if it wasn't for Nintendo turning the back on Sony, then we wouldn't have the generation and the console brand I love the most, really. So anyway, let's move on. next stop, overlooking the, you know, they always say Ipswich isn't a great place, but that's the town centre. But the countryside's beautiful. Suffolk is beautiful, and the River Orwell here. Yeah, it's just a lovely country walk, really. But moving on around that area, you know, of the Nintendo era and Sega in home computing, you know, the big things was the Atari ST and the Commodore Amigas. And I never actually owned a Commodore Amiga myself, but I had a friend at school, and he did. He had the Amiga 500, and again, this just really took me into point and click adventures. Point and click adventures, the Secret of Monkey Island. Just absolutely love that kind of Lucas Arts style games, and it just so fun with those games. It just telling a proper story and a real good adventure. And it's always at my core, and I'll always say it. I am an adventure gamer. I like I like social gaming these days, but I like a good single player adventure, a good story. It's like reading a book for me. It's that storytelling I really kind of thrive on. And point and click was the kind of real good way of that era of telling that story. And you could do it on console, like I said, with Maniac Mansion on the NES. You could do it with that. But there was so many great things with the Commodore Amiga. But one of my uncles actually did a game for the Commodore Amiga as well called Crystal Dragon, and it's a dungeon crawler. So it's the old school dungeon crawlers where if you imagine Doom, but it's just static screen. You know, you're just pressing forward, you're going forward a block, turning, going forward a block. That kind of adventure story, and you come across the a skeleton and you use the attack or magic and level up your abilities, that kind of style. But yeah, Crystal Dragon, I still own a copy of that game. To be honest, I never actually got around to playing it properly, but I will try to do it one day for the channel and get that done. But just also, Legend of Carandia was another good point and click I always remember from the Commodore Amiga. And then of course, going back to the Dizzy series, you got Amiga versions of the Dizzy games, and the Amiga versions are some of the best out there. Just like graphically, just they were the best way to play the game. Even if you're just using, using the keyboard, like old school, you were using the keyboard. Even back when I had the Spectrum, not many people had joysticks. It was all keyboard control. And then nowadays, PC gamers still thrive on mouse and keyboard control. With me, if I do PC gaming, I like wiring a gamepad. I do like having a gamepad to play things. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, the Commodore Amiga was a really, really good stage. And then, of course, we move into the PlayStation era. So, but I think we'll walk a bit further. So we'll move on a little bit, and I'll kind of get into the PlayStation era when we're a bit closer to its destination. So let's carry on. That is a big pile of shit. We'll see how this goes because it's a little bit windy down here. But yeah, this is kind of our local. We're down at the Pin Mill. Final destination, the Button Oyster. We're going to enjoy a nice pint of local beer. But yeah, just kind of moving onto the PlayStation generation. So of course, you know, PS1 was such a fantastic console. Gave us you know, introduced me to Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 7 especially. Sorry, the camera's wobbling. It's like it really is. Very windy down here today, but even though it's a lovely day, but yeah, Final Fantasy 7, just like the pinnacle of RPG for me. But then it gave us, you know, the Resident Evil series. It gave us, you know, Metal Gear. It gave us Silent Hill. There's so many great sort of come out of the PlayStation generation, and it's just a fantastic, fantastic console. And then moving on, you know, I'm just trying to get through things a little bit, just kind of not really going into in depth on these different things, but maybe another video I could go into the generations a bit more in depth and do a little bit more of a research on what I've actually played and things. Funnily enough, I kind of mentioned it on the last live stream for 200 subs, but Thrill Kill, I will get to play a Thrill Kill on a stream some point because the game was banned and it became the Wu-Tang Clan. Now I've still got that. But anyway, PlayStation 2, of course, it's continuing that great brand. And then, of course, we've got the network adapter and like you know, the Dreamcast coming out, which was the Dreamcast was the first online console, if I'm correct. One of my brothers had the Dreamcast, and he kept calling me a Sega hater, you know, because I didn't like it. I didn't like the controllers. And yeah, graphically, it looked fantastic. It was at the time kind of arcade, you know, arcade quality graphics, but there was nothing I wanted to play on there. It was just like beat 'em ups and things, or you know, crazy taxis and stuff. And it just, I didn't want to play that genre of game. I wanted that adventure game. I wanted that storytelling game. So that's why I was just so into the PlayStation ecosystem, because it had such a variety. Whereas like it was a bit pigeonholed for me, the games that was on. You know, Sega is great at arcade games. They make some great titles, don't get me wrong, but just the stuff they were putting out at the time and publishing and things, it just wasn't my thing. But PlayStation 2, just continuing the greatness of what we had, and then we got into, you know, Grand Theft Autos on the PlayStation 2. Those came about in that era. Online, the network adapter. I was playing a lot of Medal of Honor, the Rising Sun. Is it called Medal of Honor Rising Sun? And that was 8 players online at the time, I think. I met quite a few friends on there, and I haven't talked to them for quite a while. I've still got them on my friends list, to be honest. But I had some great times. I actually went and met someone off there as well. But I had some great times on that. There are just so many great things with the PS2. It's just hard to list them. It was such a fantastic generation. And then, of course, moving on to the PS3, and just, I know it had a rocky launch, and there was even the piss take of the phrase song, "How He Killed Your Brand." I'll probably put a link in the description. It's actually really funny, really well done. But it's not true, because it came out the top at the time. You know, at the end, it just had a pretty rocky start to it, and some of the planning, and then Sony kind of, you know, U-turned a little bit, and then we had great Sony again. And then I met so many friends who were actually real life friends through that generation, with a 360 as well as the opposite. I did pick up a 360, but it's because I got into a website, maturegaming.co.uk, and I've met friends on there which are now live friends. And subsequently, we used to have LAN parties with that group, and then what that's now become, you know, the people what are kind of still around became AltLAN. So you will see AltLAN footage on the video on the channel, and I will be doing more coverage this year's AltLAN when I go as well. But yeah, I got a 360 because we were doing the LAN parties, and a lot of the big LAN games at the time, Call of Duty, Forza 2, they were all on the 360. You know, so I got one just for that. But then, you know, the PS3 was still my main console. But I met live friends through that generation. So I think I'll wrap it up there, and we're going to go and enjoy a pint. And then probably when I get home, I'll kind of get a bit more up to date with the PlayStation 4, VR, and where we are now. But yeah, I think that kind of covers it. Time for a pint. And we've arrived, and I'm just settling into a nice pint of Adnams Blackshore Stout. Cheers, everybody, and I'll see you back in the house in a bit. Yeah. Frothing your moustache. Nice. Ah. Oh, there's a fucking stump there. I swear, it's already been... Stumpy? Stumpy? It's Stumpy!
It's not like Scrumpy.
It's like Scrumpy, but Stumpy. Oh, fucking hell, someone's brought the gate.
Bayek.
Bayek.
You bastard.
Thing is, it's probably not going to get your voice on there because the mic's here. Look, talking to my tits.
Hello.
So, yeah, the Swift pint turned into 2.
On Tuesdays we drink.
On Tuesdays we drink. It is a Tuesday. Look at this blossom. This is fucking gorgeous, isn't it?
Pretty.
Pretty. But yeah, the 2 pint, the 2 pint. Fucking hell, I can't even speak. I like that shit out. No, I won't, because it's funny, isn't it? Since I swear we've already had 2 pints. There used to be horses here. It's like,
Maybe
fucking hell, what's in those pints? It's like local beer's good, isn't it?
Cider.
Cider. She had the cider.
Wild Wave.
The Wild Wave from Suffolk. Arr, cider. Where's the fucking camera? It's there. Arr. I'm a fucking pirate. Arr.
I'm not with one eye.
Oh, well, this will be an entertaining bit of the video, won't it? You've got 2 eyes.
I only have one that sees.
But you only got one that sees, yes. But well, that's the question though. Who sees more, a person with 1 eye or a person with 2 eyes? Well, obviously a person with 1 eye, because the person with 2 eyes only sees the 1 eye, but the person with 1 eye sees 2 eyes. Yeah, see? Anyway, just on the walk home, just as the kind of sun's kind of setting over our lovely little corner of Suffolk.
The sun's coming down on me.
Don't let your sun go down on me. It's random conversation when you're drinking at the pub. But yeah, the sun's setting. We're walking back up, and I'll continue with the story of what's this video about? I've no idea. But we're doing.
Is that Nintendo?
Nintendo's involved, maybe PlayStation, yeah. But I'll continue it when we get home. See you in a bit.
So as the sun sets over our sleepy village, just kind of finish off the tale, shall we? The journey through the ages of the Pickle, and yeah, the PS4. I'm trying to really remember the really standouts of PS4 era, and I kind of instantly go to the PSVR. It was continuation of the success and everything Sony had built with the PS3 and well, the previous PlayStations, really, just continuation of that. Of course, we've got The Last of Us. That was kind of like one of the big titles. And the God of War reboots were really, really good on the format. I think, yeah, the Last of Us really stood out. And of course, between the PS3 and PS4, you got Borderlands, and me and my wife Kelly had so many great times on Borderlands, and it's what we based our Final Fantasy 14 Free Company on. Is we are the Vault Hunters. So if you're interested in Final Fantasy, come and join the Vault Hunters. I'll give you details. Just ask me. But anyway, yeah, got the PS4 and just continuing the journey of PlayStation. And then the PSVR was announced, and I didn't pre-order it. I didn't get it at launch, and it was always something I was really interested in getting into VR. But my best friend Dave, hope you're watching, Dave. Bet you're not, but I hope you're watching. Dave's been Skinny Pickle. Has been on my content. He's been on a few videos so far. I will get him on some more. But he got the PlayStation VR at launch, and I went round his, and I tried it, and I bloody loved it. It was so good. It's obviously tried out some of the demo games on the demo disc because it came with a demo disc. And I remember playing Robinson, the Robinson Adventure, Robinson the Journey. That's it. One of the very few games what is not compatible with PS5 if you're running the PSVR on PS5. not tried it, so I don't even know if it runs with issues, because like Rush of Blood runs with issues on the PS5, but I don't know if Robinson even runs. I don't know what the issue is, so I do order a physical copy. But just the graphics on that, it was so good visually for me. Even though it could have been better not using the DualShock and using move controllers, it would have been really good. So the other thing I forgot to mention about the PS4, the PS3 is the move controllers and the move games. And even back again, the PS2, the iToy and some of the iGames was kind of revolutionary for me as well. But the PS3 and the move controllers had a few games that were really good. But me and my wife Kelly used to play House of the Dead. What's the Overkill? House of the Dead Overkill. We played that a lot with the PS3. And oh, by the way, I moved on to Blackheart in a Beavertown glass, because why reasons. I've actually got a Blackheart glass which is still sealed. But anyway, I'm getting off of one. But yeah, we played a lot of House of the Dead, and the move controls were really kind of good. So I did own the move controls before the PlayStation VR came out. But I went round to my friends. I always remember Robinson the Avenger, really good, and played a few of the demo games and things. And I instantly knew I wanted one. And I tried to order one, but they were sold out. You couldn't get one for love of the money. The PSVR, you couldn't get it at all. And then it took a good few months before they became back in stock. And here in the UK, we have very.co.uk, which is like an online retailer. And the PlayStation 4 Pro just been announced as well. And it just so happened that I wanted the Pro, and the PlayStation VR stock and the Pro coincided on Very, and I bought the PS4 Pro and the PSVR 2, and they were 350 quid each. So they were £350 each, so it cost me £700 for a Pro and the PlayStation VR. So I never actually played the PlayStation VR on a base PlayStation 4. So I always think I can have the best experience straight away with the headset. Cheers. And yeah, and for me, around the time I got it was when Resident Evil 7 came out. Oh my god, that's just like, and I know like Madison on PSVR 2 is so good graphically, and the jump scares. I still think, and I've not finished Madison, and Madison's made me jump when I played it. But I still think, just in my head, I can't get over the way Resident Evil 7 made me feel. It was such an enlightening experience. It was the first time, because I love the Resident Evil series, and it was the first time I just felt I was in that world. I felt that horror. I felt that belief. And that was just like a light bulb moment. And for me, right there is when I fell in love with VR. And that's why I mainly do VR content. And that's why I want to do VR content, promote VR content, because nothing compares. You could be a fan. If you watch this video and you're not into VR yet, you could be a fan of the series. You could be a fan of Resident Evil. You could be a fan of many things. What we do get in VR or similar experiences. But until you step foot in that world, nothing can describe it. I can show you footage. I can show you reactions and, oh wow, is this scary? But you're watching it on a TV, on your phone or PC, and it just looks like the flat screen game to you. But the head movements going around. But this is why VR needs to be tried, to be believed, because it was that moment, like I said, it's when I fell in love with VR. And then I played a few other things, but mainly on the PSVR 1, I played Resident Evil 7 to death. I played that through so many times. I must have had about at least 5 or 6 runs on that, through Madhouse, getting all the unlocks, getting the platinum. I just loved it so much. And then Skyrim came out, the VR version, and I enjoyed it flat screen. But again, I'm not actually still not completed the VR version of that because other things come out and I kind of moved on. But No Man's Sky. Now, when No Man's Sky first came out, it was so hyped up as being the next big thing. And this is the thing. Like, I love Hello Games and what they've done over the years. But if you go to their website and look at their press kit and stuff, they've still got some original, like, pre-launch trailers on their press footage, which still promises things what's not quite in the game. Even though the game's brilliant, they've added so much content, but they made it seem so different and so out there. And some of this, because it's got procedural generation, but it's not true procedural generation to the purists. And if you look at some content creators what do No Man's Sky content, to be really true in procedural generation, it's like it says, like, every tree, every plant, procedural generated. Now, it's honestly gathering from a pool of resources to generate the different animals, the trees and plants. But when you go to a planet, it's like you see a tree, and there might be a couple of different types of tree on the planet, but you see the tree, and it's the exact same tree. It just might be different size, of course, but it's the exact same tree every time. Now, to be pure, if you were purist on procedural generation, there would be slight variations. It would be that color scheme, that type of not that type of tree, but you would have different formation in the branches, layouts, etc. That would be like really true. But of course, what they've done to the game now is fantastic. Running on a Pro, No Man's Sky, that's basically what I played for the majority of the lifespan of my time on the PSVR. Was, I'd done Resident Evil 7 to death. I played a lot of Skyrim, and it was No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky sucked me in so much. And yeah, the control scheme wasn't perfect with the move controller, but I kind of got used to it. And I missed out on, now I know, so many. Hi, wife.
I'm still Batman.
She's still Batman. But I missed out on so many what are now great indie titles because I was in that belief. Because I was still, at this time, I was still just consuming mainstream media. So, and the big websites, so they only promote the big games and stuff. And unless anything really kind of popped out on me on the store, which we all know the PlayStation Store is not fantastic, but I didn't, there's a couple of little games and a couple of cheaper games I picked up, which I did enjoy, but I was mainly playing those games. And of course, Skydancer's Saints and Sinners, the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners game was fantastic. I was basically No Man's Sky. After I completed Resident Evil, I was playing No Man's Sky, Skyrim, and Saints and Sinners. That's all I played on the PSVR 1. And I'm kind of ashamed to say, because I've missed out on some great titles. I know I have. Some of which have made it off to PSVR 2. But if you watch my review for Windlands 2, I missed the Windlands on the PlayStation VR. And Windlands 2, I loved it, but I had this misconception that indie games were 2D side scrollers or Candy Crush type games. That's what I thought indie games were. But as we all know, PSVR 2 is kind of being propped up by indie devs. And because we've not got the big first party games, and we are getting big games, of course, and we've got big franchises, Alien, and we've got Hitman just launched. As I recorded this video, so hopefully I'm going to hit 300 before too long. But we are getting those big games which are going to be recognizable for people. But yeah, I had this misconception what indie games were, so I missed out a lot on the PSVR 1. But I still love the system. I still loved it, even though the move controllers were from the PS3 era and it was out of date. But that was my main thing about the PS4. was getting into PSVR. That's what my main memory of the PS4 is. And then, of course, we move on to the PS5. And again, I didn't get one at launch. I didn't really need to get one. And then the global pandemic hit us. And it became so hard to get hold of a PS5 at all. And I was working night shifts at the time. Cheers. And there was especially here in the UK, there was a tendency for the websites to refresh stock at early hours of the morning. So me working nights was actually quite a benefit. So like I spent a good 3 weeks or so when brooms and new stock of PlayStations were coming in. Spent a good 3 weeks just every break time at work I'm refreshing websites on Argos and Amazon and things like that. And there was a lot of rumours going around. There's a website what was doing rooms or who's getting stock on when, and a lot of it was early hours of the morning. And I was just constantly doing it. And then finally, I got one. I'd seen the rumour about Amazon doing stock releases, and I finally got the PS5. And for me, the biggest leap, was not just the graphics, because it wasn't. I always thought the PS4 was really good. And of course, we do get better technology and it is getting better, but it wasn't a massive leap in graphics. For me, the big thing, what really got me first with the PS5 was the DualSense. And I've always been a fan of the DualShock. It's just, I prefer the layout. Everybody has the preferences. I never liked Xbox controls or anything like that. I don't like the analog placement. I like the analogs in the middle. But it's a personal preference. But the haptics, and during the PS4 era, just going back slightly, the reason I also didn't play that many other VR games was Final Fantasy XIV. Me and my wife has played Final Fantasy XIV since the beta test on PS3 into the PS4 era, and of course now it's on PS5. And I played a lot of Final Fantasy. And when I first booted Final Fantasy up on the PS5 version, that's when you notice the difference. That was kind of like basically PC quality. That's what the PC games have been getting on Final Fantasy for years. But the haptics in the DualSense for Final Fantasy, like Square Enix nailed it. When you get in, walking over different surfaces, the different mounts, just the subtle vibrations in the back of the controllers, from being on a chocobo and you'd feel the footsteps of the chocobo as you're walking, but then you get onto a behemoth mount, and it's like it's walking along with its big paws pounding away, and the haptics in the controller it's not just rumble, it really felt it, and that's obviously translated into PSVR 2 and the sense controller haptics. That was the generational leap for me, was seeing that difference. But I played a few games when it first came out, like Wreckfest was available and Control was available. I really enjoyed Control. Control would be a great game for VR, right? Anybody wants to play Control? It was a good story. I liked just the entire essence of the game, because it got a lot of telekinesis and tight stills on there. It would translate so well to VR. It's kind of like, ooh, that would be nice. It would be really nice. But yeah. But again, I was still in that mainstream media, and I'd put up a couple of little videos on the channel at the time, mainly of me pretending to be Donald Trump grabbing a pussy on Resident Evil 7. But I'd done a couple of other demos and things like that. But I'm not really using the YouTube channel at all. I'd had it for years. And then PSVR 2 got announced. I was determined this time that I would not miss out. I wanted that. I wanted it at launch. I wasn't going to wait in case it sold out. I pre-ordered it. And it was in the lead up to the launch, and it was probably just before Christmas of the launch, which was what we're on now, 2025, so 2022. Was that right? Yeah. So 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So 2022, December, I was obviously scouring the internet. I'm just trying to find out as much information as I can about the PSVR 2. So yeah, I was scouring the internet and I came across Gamecats Live on YouTube and Brian Paul. And I wanted more information about PSVR 2, and obviously this seemed like the place to be because they were talking about it. And like the first impressions is of Gamescast. It's like I liked what they're talking about. But the first episode I watched was a Wednesday episode. And they were calling it Wednesday. And it's like, God, can these Americans not speak? It's Wednesday. Of course, it's Wednesday or Wednesday. But it's like, that was my first initial impression. But then, of course, once I got to know it, I understood it was, like Monday, Wednesday, and Two Wise Friday. I understood it after that point and the different co-hosts. But that was my initial thought, was about they couldn't pronounce things. Still can't say certain things, like niche, not niche. But anyway, and I fell in love with the channel and the Gamecats. I joined the Discord. I've met so many great people over the years, and the extended VR community, and Jammy Hero, Cross Button VR, the Virtual Strangers, of course, Miles Dyer, AJ, and because I really threw myself into being a content creator, and I owe it to I do owe it to the Gamecats and the Gamescast, because that's what drew me in, and it expanded my mind, and I realized about the wider VR community. I started realizing about different experiences, not just the mainstream, not just the big games, because when people were saying about there's no games for PSVR 2, there was no games people recognized outside of Gran Turismo, Resident Evil, and Horizon. But there's so much more to VR than the things you recognize. Of course, we are still a niche market, and we do want the big titles, like we're getting Alien, and we're getting Hitman. These are things what will draw flat screen gamers into the industry. But if you open your eyes and experience the little things, and it's like, why I got a Quest, and even though graphically they might not be the best thing in the world, but there's some really great gameplay experiences and great stories to be told through indie developers, and that's the biggest gate, I think, is getting people into VR. I do believe it's the best way to play video games. There's no better way to play video games than VR, in my opinion. And it's like Metro. Metro is a big game, and it's got a big fan following playing Metro, but once you're in there, you put that mask on when you need to put that. You feel claustrophobic. You're in a dark tunnel. There's things coming at you. It's like you might jump scare playing a flat screen game, but in VR, you are there. That's what makes the difference. VR for me is the ultimate. But yeah, I don't know what else to really go on with. This is my channel. This is what I do. My passion is VR, and I love playing everything now. I'm not just about the big budget, because my eyes have been open to the wider community. And like I said, I've got nothing but thanks to everybody who's taken me and everybody who's given me advice over the years, the last couple of years, because it's not been that long. But it's Brian Paul over at PSVR, VR Pro, all these co-hosts, Wes, AJ, and Miles, Jammy Hero, absolute, the lad's commitment for VR and content creation is a demon about putting content out. It's supernatural how great quality content he puts out, how quickly he puts content out. He's on it so much. And then Cross Button VR, of course, these guys are just so passionate about VR as well. And I was in a little bit of a dark place last year, and because I got in talking, especially to Games with T, Reese, he took me on his whim, and I've got just so much respect and love for this guy because he's got such a passion. He's got such a passion, and he's so great with the community, with developers and everything. And this is why I love doing what I do, because I want to inspire people in the same way I've been inspired by these people. You know, these content creators inspire me, and I create content hopefully to inspire other people. That's what I want to do. That's what I love doing. I love playing video games. I love talking about my passion. But anyway, this video has probably gone a little bit longer than I expected, but massive, massive thank you to everybody who has subscribed. I never thought I'd get this far. It's only been just over 4 months since I hit 200 subscribers, and I'm already at 300. It means the world to me. I'm not doing this to be massive, to be popular, to make money on YouTube. You know, if that comes, that'd be great, but I'd only plug it back into the channel, into more games, into more content. It's not to make money. If I could make money out of doing YouTube, you know, and pay the bills, that would be fantastic. But I'm still not going to change. I'm not going to change my belief. I'm not going to take sponsorship deals and sell you a false lie about a video game. I'll always be truthful about video games, but I'm not going to be harsh. That's not my thing. But just thank you to everybody out there for subscribing to me. Listen to me talk on all this time. But cheers, and here's to the next 200. Take care of yourselves out there. Peace and love. All that. Love you all. Bye-bye. Oh, that's bloody good, that is. And here we go, bonus cat video. Are we ready? Meow. Meow. No, don't bat the microphone. Talk into the microphone. Talk. Meow.
Lily.
No, don't bat the microphone.
Lily.
Talk.